Have you ever felt like your own mind was your biggest enemy? Like no matter how much you read, how much you plan, how much you prepare, nothing ever seems to work out because your head is too full of noise? This is the story of Arjun, a young man who carried the weight of the world inside his thoughts, and how he discovered that the real secret to strength was not to add more, but to empty it all out. Arjun was in his 20s, full of ambition and desperate to succeed. He devoured books on business, self-help, philosophy, anything that promised answers. He stayed up late watching videos, listening to speeches, filling notebooks with strategies. His shelves were stacked with wisdom from every corner of the world. Yet, when the moment came to take action, he froze. He hesitated, doubted himself, and lost. His first attempt at opening a small online business collapsed because he spent months planning instead of launching. His dream of writing a book died in endless drafts because he couldn't stop editing the same chapters. He wanted to do everything, but ended up achieving nothing. And every failure whispered louder in his mind until his own thoughts drowned out his will. One evening, when frustration had consumed him, Arjun wandered aimlessly along a riverside. His head was heavy with questions. Why was he failing? Why was life so unfair? Why did effort never match reward? It was there by the quiet waters that he saw an old man sitting calmly under a tree. His clothes were simple, his eyes bright but serene, as though the world's chaos had never touched him. The man smiled as Arjun passed. That smile felt strange, like it pierced the fog in his chest. Without knowing why, Arjun stopped. The man spoke first. Why does a face so young carry the weight of an old man's sorrow? Something cracked inside Arjun. The words slipped out of him in a rush. How he had tried everything, worked hard, studied harder, and yet nothing worked. How his mind would not let him rest. How it spun day and night with fear of failure, with memories of mistakes, with doubts about the future. He confessed he felt like he was drowning in his own head. The man listened silently, then poured tea from a pot into a small cup. He kept pouring even after the cup was full, until hot tea spilled onto the ground. Arjun jumped. Stop. The cup is overflowing. It can't take any more. The man set the pot down and looked at him. And so is your mind. You come seeking answers, but your head is already overflowing with noise, fear, and half-digested wisdom. You're full of everything except the one thing that matters, space. Until you empty your mind, nothing new can enter. The words hit Arjun harder than any lecture he had read. Yet he resisted. But isn't knowledge power? Isn't learning everything the key to success? The man shook his head slowly. Knowledge is power, yes, but only when a mind is clear enough to use it. A cluttered mind is like a library on fire. All the books are there, but none can be read. What use is power if you cannot control it? He introduced himself as Master Dev, and before Arjun could argue further, he gave him a challenge. For 3 days, do nothing but sit in silence. Breathe. Watch your thoughts come and go, but do not hold them. Empty yourself. Only then will you understand. Arjun laughed bitterly. 3 days of silence? That's impossible. My mind never shuts up. Then, Dev replied, that is exactly why you must do it. The next morning, Arjun tried. He sat cross-legged in his small room, closed his eyes, and focused on his breath. Within seconds, his thoughts rebelled. He remembered the time he had failed an exam and disappointed his parents. Then came the sting of a fight with a close friend, followed by fear about the shop his father was struggling to keep alive. His heart raced, his legs twitched, and his frustration boiled. He shouted out loud, "How can anyone empty their mind when it never stops talking?" When he returned to Dev, complaining that meditation was useless, the old man simply smiled. Emptying your mind does not mean you must kill every thought. That is impossible. It means you let them pass without grabbing them. A cloud may pass across the sky, but does the sky chase it? Thoughts are clouds. You are the sky. Stop chasing. The next attempt was no easier, but Arjun tried to remember those words. Each time a thought came, instead of fighting, he let it drift. His failures floated by. His fears floated by. Even the sting of shame floated by. For the first time, he began to notice the quiet gaps between thoughts, Small pauses that felt strangely peaceful. Over the next few days, those gaps grew. He still had thoughts, but they no longer weighed him down. He realized how much energy he had wasted clinging to regrets and imagining disasters that had not yet come. When he let go, he felt lighter, calmer, and oddly more alive. One afternoon, as he sat by himself, he noticed a bird hopping along the windowsill. It was such a small thing, but his mind, empty of its usual storm, actually saw it fully. He felt the richness of that moment, as if it were a treasure. Master Dev nodded when Arjun described this. Now you are learning. When your mind is empty, the universe can pour wisdom into you. Ideas come like flowing water. Strength arises because nothing blocks its way. This is the power of emptiness. In the days that followed, Arjun noticed something else. His creativity began to spark again. He thought of simple ways to help with his father's shop. He felt new excitement for writing, not because he needed to be perfect, but because he enjoyed the process. He was no longer rushing or forcing. He was simply flowing. For years, he had believed that success came from stuffing his mind with as much as possible. Now he saw the truth. The most powerful mind is not the one that carries everything, but the one that lets go. But this was only the beginning. Arjun had started to taste the power of an empty mind, but life was waiting with a challenge far greater than sitting quietly in a room. The test of his new strength was coming, and it would decide whether this lesson was just a peaceful exercise or the turning point of his life forever. Arjun's world shifted the moment he began to understand the art of letting go, but he did not yet realize how quickly life would demand that he put this lesson into practice. Only a week after his time with Master Dev, his family's small shop, the heart of their livelihood, faced the threat of shutting down. Debts piled high, suppliers demanded money, and customers had begun drifting toward modern stores that offered faster service. Panic filled the house. His father's voice was sharp with worry, his mother's eyes heavy with fear. Every corner of their home echoed with tension. Yet, for the first time, Arjun did not join the chorus of despair. His face remained calm, his words steady, and this calmness startled even him. In the past, he would have been the loudest voice, throwing around ideas, drowning himself in endless planning, rushing to solve everything at once. But now he paused. He remembered Dev's words, "The sky does not chase clouds." Instead of feeding his fear, he emptied his mind of panic and allowed clarity to guide him. He sat in silence that evening, listening not to his own thoughts, but to the quiet pulse of his breath. From that stillness, solutions began to form, not forced, but flowing. The very next day, he began with small steps. He carefully looked at their expenses and realized how much money slipped away in unnecessary areas. He trimmed costs without fear, explaining calmly to his parents why these changes mattered. He introduced a new idea. The shop would not only sell goods, but also provide a simple delivery service to nearby homes. It was not revolutionary, but it was practical, and people responded. Most importantly, he treated each customer with a new presence, a deep attentiveness that came from an uncluttered mind. When people spoke, he listened fully and they felt it. Slowly, more began to return. But progress was not a straight line. The weight of old habits returned to haunt him. One evening, when a supplier threatened to cut ties unless payment was made, Arjun felt the old panic rush back like a storm. His chest tightened, thoughts raced. What if he failed again? What if his family blamed him? What if everything collapsed? For a moment, it felt as if all the peace he had built was about to shatter. Yet in that instant, he caught himself. He recognized that the spiral was not reality, but only clouds in his sky. He closed his eyes, took a breath, and let the storm pass. The fear remained for a while, but it no longer controlled him. With his mind clear, he negotiated with the supplier with calm firmness. To his surprise, the supplier agreed to extend the deadline, impressed by Arjun's composure. This was his breakthrough. He realized emptiness was not about escaping life's chaos, but facing it without being consumed. With practice, he became lighter, sharper, more resilient. His decisions grew bolder because fear no longer sat heavy in his chest. He noticed something else too. People around him started to change. His parents, once tense and restless, began mirroring his calmness. Customers lingered longer in the shop. drawn not just to the goods, but to the sense of peace that surrounded him. Friends who once seen him as restless and uncertain now asked him, "What happened to you? How do you stay so steady when everything is falling apart?" Arjun told them the truth, though many struggled to believe it. "I stopped carrying every thought, every fear, every failure. I emptied my mind, and in that emptiness, I found space for clarity." Some laughed, some grew curious, but all felt the difference in him. Weeks turned into months, and the small shop not only survived but began to thrive. Arjun's simple delivery idea grew popular. The family reduced their debt slowly but surely. His father, once skeptical, admitted one evening, "You become the pillar of this house. I don't know how you did it, but you've changed." Arjun smiled softly, knowing the answer was not in doing more, but in doing less, with presence. He continued to meet Master Dev whenever he could. On one such visit, Dev looked at him knowingly. "Your face no longer carries a heaviness it once did. What have you learned?" Arjun bowed his head respectfully. "I learned that strength does not come from adding more knowledge, more worry, or more plans. It comes from letting go. An empty mind is not weakness. It is freedom. I used to think I needed to fill myself to become someone, but in emptiness, I finally discovered who I am." Dev's eyes glistened with pride. "Remember this, Arjun. Life will never stop trying to fill your cup with fear, with anger, with desire, with noise. But if you remember to empty it again and again, wisdom will always find a place to enter. That is your task for life." As Arjun walked back from the riverside that day, he felt lighter than ever, as if the burdens of the past had finally dissolved. He understood now that emptiness was not the absence of thought, but the absence of attachment. To live with an empty mind was to live with clarity, courage, and peace. Years later, when people spoke of Arjun, they did not describe him as the boy who failed in business or the dreamer who never finished his book. They spoke of him as the man who brought calm into chaos, the man who listened deeply, who acted wisely, who inspired others simply by the way he lived. His success was not measured by wealth or fame, but by the countless lives he touched with the strength of his presence. And so, the lesson of Arjun is not about extraordinary talent or secret tricks. It is about something available to everyone, right now. Empty your mind. Stop clutching the mistakes of yesterday and the fears of tomorrow. Stop letting your thoughts chain you down. Life is not meant to be carried as a burden. It is meant to be experienced with clarity. If you let go, you will see what Arjun saw. An empty cup can be filled again. An empty mind can welcome new ideas, new courage, new strength. The power to transform your life is not in adding more, but in freeing yourself from what no longer serves you. So ask yourself, what are you still holding on to? What fears, what doubts, what regrets clutter your mind? Let them drift like clouds across the sky. You are not your thoughts. You are the sky that holds them, vast and untouchable. And when you empty your mind, you will find, as Arjun did, that life itself begins to flow into you, fresh, vibrant, and full of possibilities. The journey of strength begins not with holding on, but with letting go,